What are the advantages to staying in a new truck? On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're breaking down the pros and cons versus truck ownership and truck leasing. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. Hey, welcome back to Driven Too Far. Today, I've got a question for you, and it's, why do you want to own the truck? No, seriously, I have this conversation with drivers from time to time, and it comes down to the lease programs that we run. And from we kind of run a four-year cycle on our trucks, I guess. And in our lease program, we do a 12-month lease at a time. You can up the lease every year. You can jump into a new truck every year if you want to trade up. But when we get to the end of the 4 years, we typically trade the trucks out of the fleet. And there's always somebody that's interested in buying the truck, meaning they want to own that truck even after the 4 years. So that's where this podcast episode is going. And I want to challenge you just a little bit. And you can do whatever you want, right? It's just at the end of the day, I'm looking at things probably through a different lens than you are. And I'm wondering why. Why would you want to own a truck that is 5 or 6 or 7 years old in this day and age with all the technology they've thrown on them, over the past 10, 15 years? So for me as a fleet owner, that's a scary thing. And it took us a while to figure that out too. We had to change our trade cycle from 7 years to back down to 4 years. And the reality was we were trying to get to a point where we just own the truck and it's always under a factory warranty. So it's always covering those big items, the engines, the transmissions, rear ends, the DEF systems, things like that. So anyways, that's where I wanted to kind of kick off today. And I want to challenge you a little bit if that's the way you think. You know what? 15 years ago, it did make sense. We know we could run trucks 1 million miles and you could get a lot more out of them before you had to touch them. But what we see today is just, frankly, it's kind of disturbing and it's very expensive, even more expensive, than it's ever been to repair these things. So from my point of view, when a guy asks me that, it's because I don't want to see you get yourself in a bad situation. So anyways, that's what we're going to talk about today. Usually when I do ask the question to a driver, and it's a serious conversation, it's like, tell me your why. What are you thinking there? And it's most of the time, it's something along the lines of, man, I just want to own this thing for one time in my life. I want to hold a title in my hand and I want to say it's mine and I can do whatever I want to it. I can make changes to it, whatever that looks like. So I get it. But that is also a very emotional type decision. And that's usually the angle I try to push back a little bit on. I said, okay, I get that. You love the truck. Maybe this was your dream truck, something you've always wanted to do, something you always wanted to own, and you want to hang on to it, right? I understand that. The 2018 or the 2020 Peterbilt or whatever it is you're driving, I'm just going to tell you, it's never going to become a classic. You think about classic cars and the things that, people have held on to, the classic 70 muscle cars and stuff. This ain't that. It's never going to be that, unfortunately. So when I talk to them about it, I usually try to push back with a little bit of common sense and I throw numbers at you and trying to get them to at least rationalize things just a little bit. And the one thing I talk to them about is let's talk about the maintenance curve. So what would that look like? When you lease, or even if you're purchasing outright, but you're making payments on a relatively new vehicle, let's say 1 to 4 years old, you can predict, what that weekly or monthly payment is going to be, whatever your arrangements are with your carrier. And you can pretty much predict what the maintenance is going to look like at least the first 3 years. Now, getting into year 4, you're probably going to see it start to tick up. But for the most part, all you're really handling is PMs, right? You're changing your oil, doing your grease jobs. You're going to put tires on them at some point. Those are certainly expected. But the point is, anything major that happens to that truck, maybe you got a lemon, maybe something goes wrong, that factory warranty should cover the bulk of those repairs. And that's really the safety and security that we're after. If you were to look out at any modern fleet today, it doesn't matter if they're running 50 trucks or 5,000 trucks. That's probably the approach they've taken, is they are going to trade out their trucks at 2, 3, or 4 years, maybe 5 years, if they get a little more extended warranty or something like that. But there's a reason for that. It's because the numbers tell us that's what to do. And that's why we keep the numbers. That's why we track our maintenance and all those things. It tells us, when is it time to trade this truck? When is it time to get it out of the fleet? Because all of a sudden, with the payment plus the additional maintenance costs, you'd be better off making a payment on a brand new truck than continuing to put money into the current vehicle you have. And if there's one thing we know, that maintenance cost is just going to continue to go up. I kind of like to tell drivers too, the first 3 years of the life of the truck, you're going to get, your repairs are going to be nickels and dimes, right? It's going to be some smaller stuff, predictable stuff. Once in a while, you get a few things that aren't covered under the warranty, but they're not usually major components for any reason. But once you get past, especially past year 5, and for us, it's always been we'll call it year 5, when you get into kind of that 600,000 mile range on the truck, all of a sudden those nickels and dimes become bombs. We're talking 10 grand, 40 grand for a motor. It's just big, big numbers. And the problem with that is the value of the trucks come down. If you've got a 5-year-old truck and the value on the market of that truck is $55,000 or 60 grand, depending on what you're running, and all of a sudden you have to throw 40,000 into it to overhaul the motor, now you've got 90 some thousand wrapped up into a truck that's really only worth 50 and is going to continue to go down. So that's the hard part. It's like, how do you justify that? And that's really the lens I try to get drivers to look through when they tell me they want to buy the truck. So get past the emotion and let's try to make a rational decision. Does this really make good sense for you or not? I think the pushback I get from drivers is or one of the arguments rather, when we talk about that, is like, yeah, but if I go buy that 4-year-old or 5-year-old truck, the payments are cheaper than it is to lease a new one. 100%, you're right, it is. But you can't discount the maintenance stuff that's going to happen. It's going to hit you. It's just, they're mechanical, they're machines, they're going to break. And we can predict with some accuracy when they're going to go down on things, just because, we've got a lot of data, a lot of history on these things. So while the payment's cheaper, you're right, whether it's a weekly or monthly payment to the bank, the maintenance side is going to hurt. And here's probably the hidden part of that a lot of drivers don't think about. How long is a truck going to be down? You're going to have to pay for the repairs. And then what do you got for income? Meaning your source of income is in somebody's garage and you're at their mercy to get that thing fixed. Is it, when a motor goes down, it could easily be 3 or 4 weeks. And that's if they're on the ball. That's if the parts are available. That's one of the other things I think COVID taught us too, was sometimes it's just really dang hard to find the availability of the parts. Who's got them? You got to figure out who's got them, who can get them to you, and you're fighting over that. So many times what seems like it should be a simple repair stretches out. And even if the repair didn't cost you that much, what did the downtime itself cost you in lost revenue for your business? I think some drivers have, an issue with the lease model, and because it makes you feel like you're just throwing those payments out there and you're never going to own the thing. It's kind of like renting an apartment or something like that, right? You continue to pay for those things, but you can never call it yours. But I think if you shift the mindset just a little bit and understand that the truck itself is a piece of equipment in your business, and it's okay that you're never going to own that. That's not the business itself. So you're just paying rent essentially on that. And, I remember the first time I leased a pickup truck, and my dad thought it was nuts. He's like, "Well, you're just renting the thing." And he was right. I was not going to own it, but it kept me in a new vehicle. It was giving me the ability to trade up. It was just something I made part of my lifestyle, that I was going to throw so much at a vehicle payment regardless. every month. So why not have something nice? Why not have something new that I enjoy driving? And that's the advantage of a lease too, where you're not stuck with an old truck as the technology moves so fast right now. Uh, when you lease, you're going to be able to stay in a newer type vehicle more often. In the safety features, there's so many advantages to staying in newer vehicles. Maybe there's a part you haven't thought of too about, do the shippers or your customers have any kind of restrictions on the age of your vehicle? Would you be in jeopardy of losing a customer if your truck went down for any amount of time? Especially if you're a small operator, that stuff's critical, right? You've really got to provide a great service to that customer, and you could certainly be in danger if your vehicle goes down. You can't pull their loads for 3-4 weeks, or maybe you make arrangements to go rent another truck while your truck's getting repaired. That may be something you have to do, but there's an additional expense too, because your payments didn't stop to the bank on the truck that's down. And oh, by the way, you're going to have a $40,000 bill when it finally is repaired. So anyways, a lot of difficult decisions there for sure. So back to the original question, why? Why do you want to own it? Does that 7-year-old truck really give you the freedom and the pride and everything that you wanted it to do? Or is it more likely to give you frustration and downtime and all the things that just put even more stress on a tough job anyway? So that's my challenge to you, is when you get to that point, when you're thinking about those things, at least step back and take a look at it through a different lens, and understand that while we become attached to trucks, if we worked in trucking for any amount of time, we love them, right? And I certainly understand that. But it is, after all, just a piece of equipment, and it's a piece of equipment that's going to help us do a certain job. It's going to provide for our family. And I think really, when you think about it, at least in today's environment, that the long-term purchase or that older vehicle just might not make as much sense as it did in the past. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. We make sure our drivers are set up for success. If you want more information, check out the links in our show notes.